Joining us now on the Harbor One hotline to talk some Celtics, especially off of the injury to Robert Williams, it's our friend Nick Friar of WEEI.com, who is kind enough to also join us on the Zoom as well. I just had a clock behind you. Yes, you still see the clock.
You guys are just going to keep going for the cheap shots. I'm talking Celtics. I thought I was talking about Turd Ferguson's captainship and trying to help you guys with the primetime parlay. I've been hearing that you guys are struggling a little bit.
Were you a captain at Northwestern, Friar?
No, I wasn't that good. No, come on. I had a good senior year. That's pretty much it. Again, John Anderson loves to pick up my junior year ERA, which was a terrible year. Yes.
COVID year?
Yeah, COVID year.
Just say it was the COVID year. You're fine.
Yeah, sure. We'll go with that. Yeah.
I also love John picking on other people's athletic achievements. Kid played D1 baseball, and John's like, yeah, what about check your ERA?
I played JV lacrosse in high school.
Yeah, right, exactly. Awesome. He's shiming it up over here. Guy can't control his bungus, but he's also ripping pitchers in the Big Ten.
Couldn't even play the backup sport for baseball at the varsity level. That's good.
Oh, man.
Well, lacrosse is on the rise, and baseball is on the die, my friend.
Is it?
Lacrosse. I've heard about lacrosse now for the last 30 years.
You know what?
It's the Ryan Tannehill of sports.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
this is the year.
The next time a lacrosse player signs a 3-year deal for $100 million, let me know.
Yeah, that'd be
even a funny money deal. Let me know. Timelord's out. What do you make of this, Nick Friar?
This is devastating news. I mean, and I think I'm putting it mildly when I say that. This is as bad as it gets, guys. I mean, this is a team that's predicated on its defense. Your two best defenders, one of them just went down, and he's your rim protector. And I know you guys were talking about Al Horford before the break and how, he maybe will help kind of, mend the gap in this sense. I don't think so because Timelord, I mean, he's just not a rim protector like Robert Williams is. And most guys in the league aren't that good. I mean, he's averaging 2.2 blocks a game, but even then it goes beyond that. He alters shots and decision-making and everything. So losing a guy like this, I mean, to a meniscus too, absolutely brutal.
Is it worse against good bigs, or is it actually worse against good kind of slashers and guys that get into the paint that you might not be guarding per se, but he does a good job of making it tough in there?
Yeah, I think you're right, Rich. But it's about the slashers more than anything because now you got guys who, part of their game was being impacted immensely by Robert Williams. And look, I know the Celtics are going to adjust, and you have other guys who are good interior defenders, but no one does it like Robert Williams. And the big thing with him too is you could take him and put him on one of the worst scorers on the team, and then he could pivot off because he is a great off-ball defender, comes from the weak side, and then sends guys packing. You're not going to have that now. We've talked about that over the years, having that rim protector kind of guy. Robert Williams has become that, definitely an all defensive team caliber player this season. And now you just lose that. I mean, that's huge for any team.
So who now has more pressure on them if Rob Williams is going to be out for a period of time?
I would say it's going to be the other three bigs that you've been relying on. It's going to be Grant Williams, Daniel Tice, and Al Horford. And I would say, I think Al Horford will be a guy that we pick on because it's always a guy that gets picked on in this city, and understandable to some extent. Mm-hmm. But I think when you look at him defensively, he's not the guy that should be filling that role necessarily for Horford. I think it's more Tice and Grant Williams. As much as Grant Williams isn't a rim protector, and Daniel Tice is best suited as a backup center, if not like the third string guy. I think they're going to have to get creative like they have in the past under Brad Stevens, where they find different ways to defend the interior. In the past, they've done that by defending harder on the outside. I'm curious how Udoka is going to pivot in this sense, but it's going to be tough asking those two guys to fill in Time Lord's spot for sure.
You think Grant Williams just becomes the starter, or do you think they kind of tinker with that over the final 7 games?
They have to tinker with it, Rich. I mean, I would think that he's going to be the guy in the end because what he does bring something different on the offensive end too. And of course, I'm talking all about Time Lord's defensive stuff. On the offensive end too, right. He's been huge for Marcus Smart. He definitely helps out Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as well because you have that guy for alley-oop potential every single time down that end of the floor. I mean, he's got I haven't checked the numbers. I don't know if they track alley-oops per game, but I got to figure he's getting at least 2 per. Yeah. He's got to be getting 2 per game at least. And the threat of that is every single time. So that's huge. Grant Williams does help you stretch the floor. So that's a big plus, and hopefully it helps kind of deal with that issue. I think the offensive end, it may be less of an issue, but on defense, I would think it's going to be Grant, but still figuring out how he's going to handle these guys. At least he's athletic. At least he moves well, and same with Daniel Tice, but it's going to be tough.
Nick Friar, WEEI.com, talking Celtics with Gresh and Keefe. And of course, Nick joins us on the Harbor One hotline. So Keefe and I started the show talking about, like, my thought was you want to be the 1 seed or the 3 seed. Now does the first round playoff matchup matter even more if Timelord isn't going to be available for round one?
Yeah, I mean, when I was writing this up for the site and everything, I was thinking like, well, if they play the Hornets or one of these other teams at the bottom three, bottom four, I'm not as worried about it. But if it's the Nets, you need everybody. You cannot, like, I understand Jason Tatum has played outstanding and seems like he can beat anybody on any given night. Same thing with Smart and Jaylen Brown in their own given ways. But man, if you don't have one of your two best defenders and your team's identity is its defense, I would think as much as Marcus Smart being, the best defender on this team, I think if you lost him, you'd be able to survive that a little bit better because you have guys who can defend the outside a little bit more so and help interior as well. But Time Lord, you just don't have another guy who can do that sort of thing. So against the Nets, where you have Kyrie who's going to be trying to slash, you have Kevin Durant who's going to be trying to do the same thing. You just need that guy there in the middle to defend, at the rim. So I think that for the Nets, yes, if they face the Nets, it's going to be an issue. If it's anybody else, I'm not as concerned. I would almost say if it's not the Nets, I would gamble it and say don't play time. Don't even try and force them to come back in that first round. But for the Nets, you need them.
So if Jason Tatum's the most important player, he's the best player, but he's also clearly the most important player on this team, how high on that list do you have Time Lord?
I hadn't thought about it till today, honestly,
Yeah.
Rich. I mean, because I'm thinking, you just think Jaylen Brown's the second best scorer. He's a good defender and everything and can do a bunch of different things, when Jason Tatum's not taking over. But right now, to me, it's feeling like you're taking out a cornerstone piece for sure. Mm-hmm. It's feeling like the second most important piece to me, as much as Jaylen Brown is the second best player. And then I would probably put Smart ahead of Robert Williams. But it's just that we've seen in the past what the Celtics look like without that elite rim protector, when Daniel Tice for how many years was the starting center for the Celtics. And don't get me wrong, Tice does a good job, but he doesn't get the calls. And he's just better as a backup big. I think that is the perfect role for him. He's been great in that for the Celtics since returning. But yeah, so he's not the second best player, but it feels like losing him is the second biggest impact.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Friar, because I was going to get to, some teams lose a guy and the expectations don't change very much unless they're a superstar. Like if we lost Tatum, we understand the impact that would be and everybody would change their expectations. I think for some, the thought would be it's only Robert Williams. But to your point, while he may not be the second best player, he might be one of the most important guys in terms of fitting everything in. So that said, how do we change our expectations for the Celtics moving forward? Because if just Robert Williams getting hurt cripples this team, then how good were they to begin with?
I mean, that is a fair question. But again, we're talking about taking a guy who I think I would be stunned if he is not second team or first team all defensive at the end of the year, because he's just been too good. I understand he's missed time here and there. But I think that when you're talking about expectations, I mean, right now, look like first thought is, well, I just don't think we can call him a title contender right now if they don't have Robert Williams. And I understand in years past, people who maybe haven't watched this year because of the disappointing start to the season, but he's been that good. And I just think on both ends of the floor, he's impacting the game too. So could they still do it? Sure. We have a little bit of time to see how they pivot with that. It's not like they haven't played games without Robert Williams this year, but man, I was looking at it like, I don't think it matters who the Celtics play in the first round, before this injury. I didn't care about the Nets. Like, honestly, they've been such a mess throughout the course of the season. I don't care if Ben Simmons comes back. If they had a month stretch to have everybody playing together consistently night in and night out, yeah, sure, maybe that makes them tougher, but it's just they haven't been what we thought they were going to be, over the past 3 years. The Celtics have just been dismantling teams from the Western Conference, too, teams that are fighting to stay out of the play-in tournament, quality teams, but still fighting to stay out of that, so they have something to play for, and they're just, stepping on the neck and twisting, going Will Smith on them. So I think right now, I don't know if I think if you lose Robert Williams, I just don't know if you can expect them to go and make that title run that I thought they were going to make possibly.
Where do you stand on the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing?
I've been kind of mulling this over a lot because I do think there is something to defending your partner's honor, but at the same time, and I know Chris Rock has said stuff in the past, but I just think you can't do that in public. I mean, it's just, I'm sorry, and it's national television and it's like a legal matter and all these things. So yeah, I would say probably not his best move, but I'm not a big fan of what Chris Rock's had to say either.
Do you think it's real, though? Most of us think it's real. Billy on the show thinks it was a work. We had a few callers that suggested that as well. I think it's real. I'm with you.
What he said?
Huh? Yeah.
You guys heard what he said. There's no shot that was fake. I'm sorry, no way. I will say though, as someone who has been slapped in the face before, I do think Smith could have gone a little bit harder. So maybe I don't know. Like, and I know he went the follow through.
It has a working slap that lends to some of this. However, again, like Chris Rock said, it's a G.I. Jane joke. Who on earth has gotten upset at a G.I. Jane joke?
Well, at least one person I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, and I know I don't think Jada liked it either, but I think when you're talking about what she's dealing with, and I know she talks about her condition with alopecia and everything, I think that's like where it's like Chris Rock, do a little bit better research and maybe don't make that joke.
But comedian and the whole room laughed. So
including Will Smith,
all these other bleeding hearts in Hollywood who would know all these kind of things, and they laughed as well. Friar, any other Oscar outrage for you?
I honestly I wasn't paying attention to any of the Oscar stuff.
Oh, good for
you.
You're the target that they're trying to get with stunts like this.
Uh-huh.
Well, they got me on this one. I'm still blown away. I'm still like wrestling with my feelings and all this. I do wonder if it's a stunt a little bit, but
there's a lot of layers to it.
Will Smith has definitely. If Will Ferrell did it, we'd all know.
Ferrell did great.
Yeah.
Will Ferrell would have been a working punch, no question. By the way, Friar, do you want to zing John before you're out of here?
No, I do want to say though that he could have done a better job when it came to explaining the alternate spread that you guys were talking about the other day.
Yes, he could have. Yes.
I do think Gresh. I don't know. I know, Gresh, that like you didn't necessarily know what it was, or got a little confused. But John,
no, I knew what it was. I'm with you in that it was poorly explained. And
it's
then
funny.
The
I actually listened back to it,
and
I'm even more on my own side than I was before.
Well, that's
after
about
listening
right.
back.
Just try being a little less condescending for once, John, and it might help.
Woo!
No, it's just because
Friar. Good point.
I have what's called, how women sometimes have resting biatch face. I have resting douche voice, so it just comes across like that sometimes.
This is true.
That's something I've always had to deal with.
You sure about that? That's why?
You should have heard what he was saying about Jada Pinkett earlier.
Oh, boy.
Real bad.
It was hot.
You sure about that?
Will Smith would have kicked him in the nards.
I thought she was great on Gotham.
So my point, Will Smith definitely would have rushed the stage on John, probably would not on Gresh. That's my guess on Will Smith as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great call about the Rock.
100%.
That was the Rock.
Chris Rock's up there by himself. You know how sometimes they present in pairs? He wouldn't, like Jason Momoa was up there earlier. You think he's storming Momoa? No chance.
I would have given him the big boot and a leg drop, then gone for the King Kong Bundy 5 count. People would have been like, 5 count? What's going on?
Old school.
I want the 5. Nick Friar of WEEI.com. Catch his stuff there. Friar, thank you, friend. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Friar.
See you guys.